You've never seen an intellectual beating like this. Hasan Piker stood no chance against my boy Charlie Kirk in this debate on capitalism and the free market when Hasan was exposed as walking and talking contradiction against his own positions on the subject. But that's not all, because you need to stick around to see the debate nearly turn into a wrestling match as the Young Turks' Cenk Uygur starts screaming from the audience for no reason at all. Just subscribe to the channel for more discussions like this, and let's jump into it.
Currently, the economic system that we're living under is inherently exploitative, it's inherently oppressive, and we're now actually feeling the devastating impact of that more than ever. We live in a country where there are 40 million Americans. We live in the wealthiest nation that has ever existed, the wealthiest nation on the planet, and we have 40 million Americans living in poverty. We have 18.5 million Americans living in extreme poverty, according to the latest UN reports. Climate change is happening no matter how hard people try to deny its existence, and its outcomes are devastating, especially for millennials, and this is something that we need to focus on. And unfortunately, every single time we tried to bring about any sort of socialized solutions to these problems that the free market obviously fails to provide solutions for, we get called socialist, and that idea is inherently damaging. We live under an inherently oppressive capitalist dogma, and I'm here to talk about that because I think that at least questioning that and striving to find a better system is exactly what young people should be doing right now.
Right. So, inherently oppressive. So, small business owners are oppressing their employees?
Come on, you're hyper-focusing on small business, dog. I'm talking about capitalism versus socialism.
Even though 85% of all jobs in this country are created by small businesses, even though under this president, poverty rates have gone to the lowest level in the last 65 years.
Do you want to ask questions? Wait, hold on.
Let me finish. I let you finish, right?
Okay, go ahead.
Let me finish. 3.9 million Americans have gone off food stamps and into the labor force under this president. That should be applauded by everybody. When less people have to go to government for money and for meaning, and they instead are able to go to a job and have a paycheck, that's a good thing. And so the final thing I'll say is this, and you'll find disagreement. Just because someone gets rich does not mean someone gets poor. In order for you to get rich in a free market system, you must have a good idea. You must create value. You must employ people. You probably borrowed money. And you have an 80% chance of that business not succeeding. In a free market, yes, we applaud success, but you must take responsibility for failure. And you have seen in the last 100 years the standard of living increase for all people across the world. Things get better, prices go down, and we are able to enjoy the abundance that only a free market system can create. And you know what? I don't have to call you guys socialists. Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist, and we should reject socialism.
Conjecture versus hard statistics, that's the bird's eye view of this debate, but I want to pick at something that Hasan Piker just remarked about capitalism as supposedly inherently exploitative. How can Hasan make that explicitly Marxist talking point and yet not claim to be a Marxist? The entire edifice of Marxist thinking lies in construing the profit motive as an exploitation of the working class and as a means to extract their labor with minimum possible compensation. But the problem is construing the entire system of the free market as exploitative when it is the same system that has accomplished more to uplift people from poverty across the world than any centralized system of government or socialist economy could even fathom. Since the turn of the last century, humanity has dropped the share of people in extreme poverty from 6% to less than 10%. There's no single person or government that can claim credit for that, but a simple idea at the heart of it: people have the right to private property and the freedom to engage in trade and cooperation to enrich everyone in the process. And yet there's no shortage of people in the United States and across the world that are willing to sacrifice these two fundamental principles to the altar of some unattainable utopia. Watch Hasan Piker struggle to make sense of that, even to himself.
You know what socialist is? Bernie Sanders wants an 80% tax rate on the rich.
Venezuela too, right? Dude, listen.
Bernie Sanders wants to keep our fossil fuel assets in the ground.
You want me to explain it to you? Because you obviously don't understand it. Do you want me to explain it to you?
Is Cuba not socialist? Is North Korea not socialist? Was Vietnam not socialist? Was Zimbabwe not socialist? You can laugh all you want, Hasan,
okay, but
100 million people died under socialism in the last 100 years, and you have the gumption to continue. You can keep laughing to the victims' families from Cuba, from Venezuela, from Korea, from Vietnam, from Mao's China, from Stalin's Russia. The number one killer of citizens, from innocent civilians in the last 100 years, has been the very idea that you shamelessly wear on your sleeve every single day. Marxism has killed more people than any other ideology over the last 100 years.
Okay. Thank you for those words.
You're welcome.
When 100 million people die under a communist dictatorship, and some of those millions are also Nazis, which is included there, whatever, you blame communism.
The National Socialist Workers Party.
Or you blame socialism. But when 7 million people die every year under our current global capitalist environment, where just by famine alone, before we even talk about imperialism and before we even talk about the damaging wars that are happening all around the world, then it's the individual. So you're essentially telling every single person that's poor, it's your fault that you're poor, it's your fault that you die under a capitalist system, but if you were under a communist system...
I have never said that.
I mean, that's literally what you're saying.
No, it's not.
So whose fault is it? Whose fault is it that 7 million people every year die just by famine-related diseases and famine under our current global capitalist structure?
Whose individual fault is it?
Yeah. Why is it with the system when it comes to communism, but it's actually
go from 40 years to 80 years in America for women and 76 years for women.
You're not answering my question.
Global poverty is at its all-time low than it ever has been. It's dropped below 10%.
You're not answering my question. You're not answering. You're talking about something completely different.
There is not a singular person why individuals might die, unfortunately. However, what's going to stop that?
It's unfortunate when they die.
Oh, yes, yes, Hassan. Death is unfortunate.
Yeah, correct. I know.
I love what Charlie Kirk just did there. It's incredible that people like Hasan Piker would first decry the corruption by what is fundamentally just crony capitalism, and then call for a select few people to have centralized control over the economy, with seemingly no understanding that centralizing power also means centralizing corruption. And guess what? That's exactly what has happened in every state and country that has tried to implement socialist economies, where people's greed for wealth makes them want to seek political power rather than produce something and sell it into a marketplace. But let's give Hasan the benefit of the doubt, because maybe what he really is calling for is socialism in the sense of redistribution and welfare systems. Looking from this perspective, there's one critical flaw in socialism you hardly even see socialists themselves deal with. It is that socialism of this kind works very well in theory when you've got the wealth to begin with. But to lay out the right incentive structures for people to create the wealth in the first place, that's similar to what the debate is with something like the medical industry in the United States. The world needs the United States medical industry to invent new medicines, surgeries, and equipment in order to benefit the field across the world, and yet the socialists still live in some kind of utopia where both benefits of that innovation can be socialized, while the incentives for people and companies to produce that innovation can be retained by giving them enough of a profit motive. For example, 90% of new drugs and medicines fail to make it to that phase 3 of trials, and more than 90% of biotech startups fail. Somebody has to bear the cost of that, and somebody has to invest that risk. It's only fair that whoever is responsible in case of loss is also deserving in case the drug or company is successful in turning a profit. That's the lack of understanding you see from Hasan displayed over and over again.
How about a 30-year patent on a drug that disallows someone with a better idea that would bring down the price of the drug so that the middle class could have the same sort of treatment that the rich and powerful have?
That's the regulation that you think I'm against?
No, I'm not saying you're against it. I'm saying what I'm for, Hasan. I think
we should... Look.
Again, let me finish.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, you're right.
The free market allows itself to three really, really big things. It allows prices to go down, quality to go up, and abundance to go outward. Everywhere it's tried, whether it be grocery stores, whether it be housing, if the laws of the market do not stop working just because it's in healthcare, whether it be LASIK eye surgery. LASIK eye surgery used to cost $20,000 per eye. The insurance companies
technological advancements that are
because of the free market,
more affordable.
The insurance companies would not cover the LASIK eye surgery.
Ridiculous.
It was a cash business. Doctors went outside of the traditional system, and all of a sudden now it costs $500 per eye for LASIK eye surgery.
Everything you're saying is flat out false. And also,
what's false about that?
Because we live under a mixed economy, Charlie. So it's a consequence of both publicly funded research and also certain private elements. So when you try to turn around and look at technological advancements that are happening in virtually every field, okay? Virtually every field on an international scale, and assume that this is just a consequence of free market capitalism, well, let's talk. Yeah, no, it's actually unicorns, dude. Unicorns are giving us magically the
Hasan, answer me a question.
If we're going to lie about this stuff, then we might as well just go all the way out.
Does insurance cover LASIK?
Does insurance cover
LASIK?
What does that have to do with anything?
Because when you don't have the insurance lobby within the negotiating of prices, then the consumer knows exactly what everything costs. The reason why healthcare costs so much in this country, you go into a hospital, no one knows what anything costs. No one knows what anything costs for how long you stay there, for how long the procedure is. A key component of a market is pricing.
Yeah.
The problem with the system we have now,
and we live in a country that is virtually the only country on the planet that does not negotiate drug prices. Even Donald Trump said he was going to do this, and he's failed to deliver on that promise, among many other promises, like he was going to solve the economy, or that he was going to bring about world peace. Like, this is preposterous to assume that, like, insurance, you could just unjustifiably just throw out a claim without expecting me to I can't even talk, holy shit, refute it. When you say when you make this ridiculous assertion that insurance companies are actually decreasing prices when it's not the government
no, they're
who
not.
should be regulating
Hassan,
them.
I asked a very specific question.
What?
LASIK eye surgery
But then you
not covered by insurance.
Okay.
Consumers went straight to the doctor, so they knew how much it cost. Therefore, prices went down, quality went up, and accessibility went outward. That's what happens when a market is allowed to exist.
Again, there's only one person that appears to have done their homework on the issue, and that is not Hasan Piker. All you see from him is listing out a bunch of problems that exist in the world and making no effort to connect that to anything that fundamentally stems from the free market. The truth is that most of the world's problems that he listed have no clear line drawn to capitalism inherently. For example, British researcher Alex de Waal did an extensive study and found out that most of the world's famines today are not a result of lack of food, but from military and political action in places like Africa and the Middle East. And the problems in the economy like the 2008 crash or the manipulation of the markets to their detriment happen more from corruption and a pervasion of capitalism versus the genuine free markets. But in a world like this, it's really something to see that kind of blind virtue signaling from Hasan, and it nearly spilled over into the physical domain. Just take a look at this incredible moment.
So Hasan, why don't you give 95% of your money away and go live on a commune?
Do you really think that that's how it works? Do you really think
why
that's
not?
how it works?
Go live
silly.
what you preach. Because every single
this is as silly.
You talked uninterrupted for 5 minutes. Hasan, let me finish.
Go ahead. Sorry, you're right.
I live what I practice. I am a free market capitalist. I employ people. I took a risk. I have my own startup business. Every single day, I practice what I preach. He wants other people to contribute to what he considers to be a good idea, what he considers will make the world a better place. You have the freedom to go live as a socialist. Go do it, Hasan. What's stopping you?
Okay. All right. So here's why this is ridiculous. And the last point. The last point I will make is this. Here's why that conversation is absolutely preposterous. If I gave away the measly earnings that I had and gave away 95% of that,
how much do you make,
that wouldn't necessarily even push the needle. I will be very honest. It's really embarrassing, especially because my boss is sitting right there. I make $60,000 a year, okay? And that's a really good salary, but it's not like what Ted Cruz's wife was talking about the other day when she said $174,000 salary a year. It's not like we're going to buy a second home anytime soon, but that's besides the point, okay? You're trying to attack me, which is ridiculous, like asking me what my salary is. Sure, I'll reveal it willingly.
You brought it up in context. I'm asking, why don't you live like a socialist?
Okay.
Go live like a socialist.
The point is larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Cenk. I live as a capitalist, okay?
Hey.
I live when I believe.
No.
What do? I get charity every single year.
Hold on.
What's my salary? Less than his.
Charlie, take a seat.
Come on, Cenk, let's go.
Charlie,
what are you doing? Take
a seat. Take a seat.
Psycho?
All right, no. Take a seat. You're going to take a seat. You're going to take a seat over here.
Oh, my God.
What's my salary?
All right.
Ridiculous. All right, behave, everyone. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
I practice what I preach, Cenk.
Charlie.
You
Stop.
do not practice what you preach.
Charlie.
All right, hold on. Last point.
You don't want to give him the attention here.
Everyone,
35,000 donors across the country, my friend Cenk. We are funded by the grassroots of this country. You can try to demagogue it all you want.
$60,000, Hasan, that would take him more than 50 years of living with zero expenses to buy the $3 million mansion he just bought in Los Angeles. But that's besides the point. There's nothing wrong with making money and buying what you want. The problem is when your actions don't line up with your words, even while lecturing other people's morality on that very basis. I think Charlie Kirk throughout this entire debate tried to match the loudness of his opponent, which is certainly a different tactic to remaining calm in response and obviously doesn't work when you got someone like Cenk shouting from the audience. Why does Cenk seem to lose his cool at the worst possible time every time? And it certainly did nothing to help Hasan, in fact only made his side look weaker. And the larger point, I think, it's the conversation like this that reveals just how much intellectual depth there is in the pundits and streamers that so many people go to for their real political takes.